All right, man, peace. So, brothers, coming into this season, pretty much the consensus opinion amongst most of the NBA pundits is that the Boston Celtics would be advancing out of the Eastern Conference Finals come playoff time and represent the East in the NBA Finals, most likely against the Golden State Warriors, where they'd probably be picked to lose in 6 or 7 games. Well, it's very early in the season, but it appears as if the Toronto Raptors plan to throw a monkey wrench into all those plans. And we're going to find out, because I did believe that the Raptors would be viable candidates to possibly give the Celtics a very difficult time, because they match up very well with the Celtics. Unlike Philadelphia and Milwaukee, the Toronto Raptors, they have the young athletes with the wingspan who can guard on defense and also make the three on offense. And if the Celtics were to match up with the Raptors in the conference finals, the Raptors would have the best player in the series, that being Kawhi Leonard. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
The Raptors and the Bucks remain undefeated. They have wins over the Wolves and the Sixers, respectively. Max, should the Celtics be worried about even getting out of the East at this point? Been saying it since the preseason.
Yes, you have. I have to give you credit, Mr. Max Kellerman. I do have to give you credit for that. The Celtics should be worried. I mean, as we can see on the screen, it says that they're 2-2. But as of right now, the Celtics are 6-4. The Raptors are 9-1. And even though, once again, it is early in the season, oftentimes these teams that get off to great starts, they're the ones that end up with the best records, especially in the Eastern Conference. So the Raptors are a problem. They won 59 games last year, and they greatly improved at their best player position. DeRozan is a top, I would say, 20 player in the NBA. When you're talking about Kawhi Leonard fully healthy, he's definitely top 5 at the very least.
The Celtics could easily wind up winning the championship if they get there.
Well, no, the Celtics could not easily wind up winning the championship if they play Golden State. It'd be a dogfight. And if the Celtics were to win, it would most likely come in a shocking Game 7 upset.
The two rivals to the Warriors this year, in fact, are both in the Eastern Conference. Luckily for them, they're only going to have to play one of them, either the Raptors or the Celtics. Everyone just wanted to anoint the Celtics, and I understand why.
You say
I agree with that. That's going to be very interesting, that Golden State Warriors-Toronto Raptors matchup. Because the Raptors, they have the wings, at least to try to guard the Warriors as well.
You say either the Raptors or the Celtics.
Yeah.
Don't you mean another? You said the
Two
Celtics.
Eastern Conference.
You said the Celtics.
No, the Warriors.
Got it.
The Warriors. If I misspoke, I apologize. The Warriors have two real threats to their championship aspirations: the Raptors and the Celtics. And luckily for them, they only have to play one of those two teams. I'm not sure that they beat either, let alone both. Everyone wants to anoint the Celtics. I get it. You talk about the bench on the Celtics. The Raptors have this great bench. That's Masai Ujiri's trademark.
I agree with that, but sometimes that bench aspect can be a bit overrated, especially once you get to the playoffs, where your best players are going to play 42 to 46 minutes a game.
Both in Denver and now in Toronto. But in fact, it's the Celtics starting 5 that everyone really is reacting to. They got the bench, they got the coach, but the starting 5, it's like, oh my God, where's the weak link? These guys are all great. Toronto.
Let me say this: the Celtics are 6-4. I guarantee you that Danny Ainge is thinking about how he can put together a package for Anthony Davis, because mysteriously, all of a sudden, Anthony Davis has an elbow issue, and I'm not going to say that it's fake, but it seems very fishy to me. They got off to a 4-0 start. He was the front runner for a league MVP, and all of a sudden he has this elbow issue. They've lost their last 6 games.
Toronto doesn't have that quite, but Toronto has the best player on either team. Kawhi Leonard is, along with the Greek Freak, one of the 2 best players in the Eastern Conference, I believe, when he's healthy, along with LeBron James and maybe AD, one of the 3 best players on planet Earth.
Well, look, I think that AD is one of the 3 top talents, but when we're talking about players, you have to be available. You have to be available. And as of right now, my top 3 list hasn't changed, and that's LeBron, KD, and Steph Curry.
When last seen healthy, guys, Kawhi Leonard had a 23-point lead on the Warriors in the playoffs. The moment he got hurt, the lead evaporated and they got crushed by the Warriors. The Spurs did. Kawhi Leonard was the best player on multiple championship teams. Kawhi Leonard has been a finals MVP.
Well, I think that actually Kawhi has only won 1 championship, that being 2014.
Who's unanimously recognized, universally, as the greatest defensive player in the game, who will take the other team's best perimeter player every single night and do as good a job as anyone could possibly have done in the history of basketball. But then he turned into a guy who would also give you 25 on the other end and do it very efficiently. Shot 44% from three one season, taking a bunch of threes. They just replaced DeRozan, who is not capable of being the best player on a championship team.
Agreed.
With a guy who's already has a track record of demonstrating he could be the best player on a championship team.
Well, what Kawhi actually demonstrated in 2014 is that he can be a very impactful player amongst a group of players with a very high basketball IQ, and he could play his position to precision. That's what he showed in 2014 because he was not dominant. What he showed was that he was probably the player in the NBA that was the most on the rise in regards to what he brought to the table.
And they gave him a defensive crime partner, the perfect 3-and-D guy at the 2 and Danny Green to run.
Then you also have a very mobile shot blocker in Serge Ibaka. That Toronto team, their defense is going to be no joke. I mean, their year is just getting started. Their season's just getting started. I believe Kawhi has already missed 4 games. Once they get into the flow of the season, assuming that he stays healthy, their defense is going to be impeccable.
Wrong with them. The double chase down block is like, to me, the most memorable play of this season so far. Yeah, the Celtics have a problem. The Raptors could very well be the best team in the East. They're certainly one of the two. The
NBA playoffs this year is going to be lit for real. It's going to be lit for real. Because just in the Western Conference, you're going to have great matchups. And in the East, especially the top half of the East, is going to be very good. The East probably won't really get exciting until the second round. But from the second round on, it's going to be great playoffs.
And that's a 50-50 proposition the entire way.
Well, when you're definitively ready to pick the Toronto Raptors to come out of the East, call me. Until then, it means absolutely nothing to me. I respect the fact that they're a damn good team and they've upgraded and they've gotten better, but I'm not putting them ahead of the Celtics. And you know the thing that makes me laugh, right?
You mean other than your hairline, Stephen A. Smith?
Right now, the Boston Celtics are like 25th offensively. Do we really think that's going to last?
Well, not quite, but Stephen A. Smith, the Celtics are not an offensive juggernaut. They're not really built to be an offensive juggernaut. I don't see them finishing much higher than around 16th or 17th in offense in the NBA. That's not how they make their bones. They make their bones by getting stops and giving the ball to Kyrie in crunch time and also, maybe giving the ball to Jason Tatum in the half court. But they do not have an explosive offense.
Kyrie Irving's averaging like 16 points, shooting 18% from three-point range. Do we really think that's going to last?
Well, no, he had to shave that afro down.
Leading scorer for the Boston Celtics right now is Jason Tatum, 17.5 points a game. Do you really think that's going to last? Jaylen Brown isn't even averaging in double digits. Do we really think that's going to last?
It'll last as long as you keep wearing them goofy-ass shoes. Dude running on a basketball court with one red sneaker and one blue sneaker. Talking about it was an homage to Tracy McGrady. Now, keep in mind, Jaylen Brown's friend mysteriously died a couple of years ago. So, who knows? He might be an initiate into the Brotherhood of Saturn as well.
Here's the reality. The Boston Celtics went to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, and obviously they're right for the expectations. But not only do they have to implement Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward back into the mix because they were both out last year. They're doing it with Gordon Hayward having minutes restrictions. He's restricted to 25 minutes or less. So we don't know but this is no indication, rather, what Boston is going to look like as the season progresses.
I agree, it's a long season, but Stephen A. Smith, you know a real horse when you see one. You know a real horse when you see one. You also know a show pony when you see one. Both the Raptors and the Celtics, they look like real horses. And this fast start by the Raptors, it does not look fake. It looks like it's something that's very real.
When it's all said and done, after 82 games of playing, and we walk into the playoffs, come talk to me then. Because I started this season saying Boston is going to the finals, and I'll say it again. If Boston does not go to the finals, this season is a failure.
I agree with that, sir. And let me say this, if Boston does not go to the finals, Kyrie Irving is most likely going to leave. Because I think that the only thing that is going to potentially keep him in Boston is the belief that he's going to go to the finals. His mentality is going to change over. And I think that he's going to start to say to himself, well, if I can't get to the finals on this team because Toronto's better, I might as well go to New York and have my fun.
Period. With that roster, with that depth, if they don't go to the finals,
Right, but once again, Stephen A. Smith and a lot of these guys, these pundits, they get caught up into this trap of having a deep lineup. How many years has having a deep lineup really won championships in the NBA? For the most part, the teams that win the championships are the teams that have 3 great players or 2 great players and 1 very good one. I mean, every once in a while you have a Detroit in 04. You have the San Antonio Spurs of the mid-2000s and 2014. And one can even make the case that those Spurs teams in the mid-2000s, they had a big 3. So this stuff about how deep their roster is, it's a little bit overrated. You do need some depth. You need some effective bench players. There's no doubt about that. You do need effectiveness off your bench. But when you get to the finals, you're not going to have too many teams that are going to be giving their 7th and 8th man serious minutes.
They are not better than the Boston Celtics. They don't go.
I agree with that, but I agree with that for both teams. I mean, this is the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat in sports. Is there can only be one winner. It's a zero-sum game. You win or you lose, and these are 2 excellent teams. I remind you, the Raptors had the best record in the East last season. Also, this idea that, LeBron was their kryptonite. No, guys. Look, DeRozan's an excellent player. He's an all-star caliber player. DeRozan is not an MVP caliber player. He is not the kind of guy where you look at it, you go, that could be the best player.
Right, but it was very obvious that LeBron James has some type of psychological hold over that team. Because it would be one thing if the Raptors were losing in 6 or 7 games to the Cavaliers. They got swept 2 out of 3 times. The Cleveland Cavaliers were not that much better than them. So when you're getting swept multiple times by a team that oftentimes you have a better record than, that's psychological to me.
By anybody.
He was their kryptonite.
I mean, he was their kryptonite.
But what I'm saying is, if you turn DeRozan into Kawhi, suddenly LeBron's not your kryptonite. Why is that? The reason is your best player can't be DeRozan. But when you go presto changeo and he's Kawhi and he's running with Danny Green, that is a whole you need more shooting. You got it. You need better defense.
I mean, my goodness, congratulations! I'll give you a trophy. DeMar DeRozan is not as good as Kawhi Leonard. Stop the presses. Nobody knew that. Here's the reality.
DeMar DeRozan's having a great season thus far. The only thing with him is that he's known for having a great November. He's a great November, early December player. I want to see if he's able to maintain this level of stellar play over the course of this entire season.
The bottom line is the Toronto Raptors are better. We get all of that. But they still should not be better than the Boston Celtics.
They won more games last year and they got better.
So what?
And they got better, right?
I don't care.
You know what's interesting?
Did the best team always win the most games in the season?
No.
Thank you.
You know what's interesting?
Thank you.
Now and they didn't last year, but now they are.
Sometimes you bury your most scandalous take right off the bat.
Go ahead.
And then you go on and give us a bunch of words and start arguing over Raptors Celtics. What I found most offensive in your entire diatribe
This is my smartest point he's going to
was that you feel like the Boston Celtics, who should be closer to the Warriors this year than in any competition the past couple years coming out of the East, the Boston Celtics or the Toronto Raptors, the Warriors might not be able to beat them. Why do you keep doubting a historically great team? As good as I think the Celtics are, and you're right, they need to be in the finals, let me be clear about something. This is still the Warriors' world. This is still the Warriors'
Well, I will tell you.
I agree with you, sir.
I'll tell you why. There are pieces of evidence. First of all, the Warriors have now been to 4 finals consecutively. This would be their 5th. At a certain point, you're playing like an extra season that no one else has to play. Difficult to keep that together. It's the reason it hasn't been done since the Celtics' great dynasties, where you're winning 4 championships in a row. That's 1. 2, they went to...
Well, let's be for real. The main reason why it hasn't been done, and of course this is speculative, but it's because Michael Jordan retired. And I mean, for all intents and purposes, at the very least, even for the people who think that the Rockets would have beaten the Bulls in 94 or 95, at the very least, the Bulls would have gotten back there. Because there would have been no one in the East that would have been good enough to stop the 1994 Bulls. That team would have had the best aspects of the first three-peat team and some of the best aspects of the second three-peat team. Pretty much the only guy that they would have been lacking would have been Dennis Rodman on that 94 team. They would have had Horace Grant, B.J. Armstrong, John Paxson, Bill Cartwright, Scottie Pippen off the first three-peat team, and of course Jordan. And then on the second three-peat team, they would have had Ron Harper. They would have had Tony Kukoc. They would have had Luke Longley. Like, that team would have been stacked. There's a reason why that team won so many regular season games even without Jordan. It's because they ran a real system. Their players had high basketball IQ. And during that regular season, They played every regular season game like it was Game 7 because they wanted to prove that they were more than just Jordan. But to make a long story short, had Jordan not retired before the 93-94 season, they would have went to, at the very least, 4 straight finals. And I think that they would have beaten the Rockets because the postseason is totally different from the regular season.
Went to Game 7 against Houston. Houston was missing their second best player. They went 1 for 30 from outside, and still the Warriors only won by single digits, which tells me they can be had. They can be beaten 3. This idea that they're invincible comes from whooping up on bad Cleveland teams that had LeBron James, which is why they got out of the East.
And the rest of the West.
The reason LeBron got out of the East is because the Celtics were missing arguably last year. Certainly their best player, but maybe their 2 best players. That's why they got out of the East in the first place. The Celtics now have those 2 guys. The Toronto Raptors have gotten much better by swapping out DeRozan for Kawhi Leonard. The Warriors it's not that they're vulnerable, it's that these are 2 other great teams.
So who's the Warriors going to play in the finals?
Yeah, I'll go Raptors, sure.
Okay. About time.
Oh, you got it. You got
About
it for
time.
June.
About time.
I got something for June.
Somebody had to ask.
Just writing down
You have to
here.
get an
Warriors
answer. Long
dynasty
enough.
built on
All
beating
right.
bad teams. Just writing that one down. You're denying
Lucked
June.
out with CP3, let's be honest.
It's been a
No, they didn't luck out with CP3. Actually, the Rockets lucked out when Iguodala went down. But it is what it is. We'll see what happens. Very long season. As of right now, I'm going to stick with my Boston Celtics pick to get to the finals. But the Raptors are definitely trending. They're trending upward in a big way. So peace.